going through our first experience with having kids in our house that actually have symptoms right now.
Oh,
So that has
oh
been
dear.
that has been an interesting learning. So I mean, I think that, you know, from a sheer numbers perspective, the numbers and the sort of public health responses are kind of speaking for themselves right now. All the way across the world, we're seeing rising numbers of cases. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in, you know, South and Central America, Canada, the U.S., and you know, it's now really being called a second wave. Um, the numbers in Ontario are rising, not as dramatically as they were initially with that sort of exponential growth, but they certainly are still rising. And that day-to-day variability, again, is still probably mostly related to reporting delays. How you might see a day where there's 640 cases and then another day where there's 820 cases. What's really helpful is looking at the 3 and 7 day averages to see how things are increasing. There are increasing numbers of outbreaks in long-term care facilities and hospitals and schools. And so we are firmly in the middle of this. And the response from Halton Region so far has been encouraging people to take voluntary steps to help to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And so they haven't they haven't moved Halton Region back to a modified stage 2. But the chief public, Dr. Megani did send out a notice to doctors' offices, and I think it was published broadly, encouraging people to move back to eliminating the sort of safe social circles, not attending fitness classes in person, to only go out for essential activities, to avoid places like indoor dining and gyms and movie theaters and those kinds of places where there is an increasing number of spread. They're recommending these as voluntary measures right now, so strongly encouraging people to do these things. But it's hard to say if there do continue to be increasing numbers, then they may move that away from voluntary recommendations into something that's a little bit stronger, right? In terms of using sort of legal mechanisms that are at their disposal to enforce those practices, which is what's happening now in Toronto and in Peel and in York and in Ottawa. So they are actually required to close all of those places at this point. Halton Region is not, but that's where things are. And so I do consider those recommendations to be really strong ones and something that we should all be sort of thinking about following, moving back into considering what is essential in terms of our trips out, what is essential in terms of the activities that we really need to do. Exercising outside rather than going to gyms, thinking about home workout programs, thinking about takeout and Uber Eats and those options, again, home delivery services for groceries and other essentials, and just trying to sort of minimize the crowding in any indoor spaces. So that's kind of where we are right now. Obviously, we're all watching the numbers really carefully, but we are definitely in the middle of it. So also seeing some increasing numbers of deaths and increasing numbers of admissions to intensive care units, which is what usually follows increasing numbers of cases. So you know, it's been interesting for us as a household, kind of going through this process. This started for us on Sunday afternoon. So it's only been a couple of days of viral symptoms, but Isla woke up on Sunday with a runny nose and a sore throat. And how it works now is if a child only has one symptom, then as long as that symptom gets better, if it's not a cough or a fever or shortness of breath or loss of taste or smell, if they just have a runny nose or they just have a little bit of a sore throat or they've had diarrhea for a day, they're asked to stay home, but if those symptoms get better, they can go back to their lives. But any child that has two symptoms, so in Isla's case, it was runny nose and a fever, or sorry, runny nose and a cough, she did need to get COVID testing done. And so we took her into the assessment center on Sunday, and she had her brush in the nose. And luckily, her tests have been negative. Her test was negative. And then Thea woke up yesterday with similar symptoms, and she probably has the same thing that Isla has, but we can't assume that because Thea's at a different school. Thea has different exposures. And so we took Thea last night to get her COVID testing done, and we are awaiting those results at this point. So we have decided as a household, it's not required for the rest of us to self-isolate under the current recommendations in Halton. When someone is sick or someone has testing pending, as long as you don't have symptoms, you can go back out to your life. But we decided as a household that we were going to self-isolate until we knew that Thea's test was negative. So we've been hunkered down here. I've been running my office from the basement, doing phone consults with my patients, and the girls have switched over to just the online learning for the next few days. And so we're just waiting it out. And sort of thinking about what that might look like for us if Thea's test does come back positive for COVID-19. So if it does come back positive, then what the region would do is they would do contact tracing from the rest of us would have to get tested, and then they would do contact tracing for Thea 48 hours before her symptoms started. So anybody that she was in close contact with from Friday to, or I guess Saturday to Monday, she would need to be in touch with. In our case, that's actually just us. That's only our household that that they would do contact tracing for. And then she would have to isolate for 10 days because she has COVID-19. And as long as her symptoms were better at the 10-day mark, then she can go back to her life. And the rest of us, if we're positive for COVID-19, then we would be able to go back to our lives in 10 days. If we're negative for COVID-19, interestingly enough, we need to wait out the full 14 days to see if symptoms show up. So that's how it's going to work for us for the next few days. So we're all on tenterhooks a little bit, thinking about what the next few weeks are going to look like for us. So my suspicion is she has the same thing that Isla has, and my hope is that her test is going to be negative. But it's been an interesting experience for us to sort of, just for me to understand what it's like for families and for households to have to go through this process and to kind of have their lives come to a grinding halt as they wait for test results to come back. Now, thankfully, the test results do come back faster now than they did previously. There were a lot of families that were waiting weeks to get their test results back. But it is a challenge, but it's important for me anyways that we sort of follow these public health guidelines as strictly as we possibly can. So I guess I'm happy to answer questions. Between sort of running my office and the kids, I haven't done a ton of reading this week, but I've been following the news a little bit. So if people have any questions, then I'm happy to try to answer them.
The electronic medical records, they're talking about expanding it. They've already got a few hospitals on, and now they're talking about Apple products and some other ones. Are you able to function with accessing the records from your end at home?
Yep, completely. So I can, so I can access my office, all of my patient charts through a secure process called like a VPN, and so it's an added level of security that I have to log into before I can access patient charts from my home. So it's not just my own home Wi-Fi. There's a second system as well I go through. Yeah.
But we may be able to start accessing it as well. There's a few steps yet to come, but that's a major breakthrough. I hope it happens.
Yeah, for sure. So it's something that, you certainly can access records on Life Labs. If you get diagnostic imaging done in most places, you can get that. And then there are a few patient portals that are being introduced across a number of the electronic medical records so that people can access their charts. And or at least their information. And I think that
Yeah.
is really good from a transparency perspective, and for people to just have access to that information. It's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hmm.
So I'm feeling, I'm feeling, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that the processes are in place now, that that people are sitting up and taking notice and are starting to take this a little bit more seriously. And so I think that, the next few weeks, the proof will be in the pudding. We're a week out from Thanksgiving right now, so we'll have to see in the next 7 days if there's if there's a significant rise in cases from Thanksgiving gatherings. Um, but certainly, I think the moves in Toronto and the hardest hit areas are important, and encourage people to follow those voluntary measures. I mean, I know they're not being sort of legally implemented right now, but I think those voluntary measures that the region is recommending are going to go a long way to preventing the further spread of COVID-19 in the region.
No more shopping.
It's interesting to hear those voluntary measures because it seems like they have still not said no to Halloween trick or treating.
That's correct. So they have in a couple of areas, right? And so some of the hardest hit areas in Toronto, some of the hardest hit areas in Ottawa, and those areas, they actually have said that trick or treating is a no, but they haven't said that yet in this region. So trick or treating is still at the present time something that can be done, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with people, maintaining their distance and going out in their own household, and, only masking, obviously, and, thinking about how you want to sort of, give out candy and that sort of thing. Lots of sort of creative ideas for how to do that, but certainly masks and very short, brief interactions and staying within your own household are really important parts of trick-or-treating this year.
Okay. Well, good luck to you in your new testing adventures. The 10 days starts after you're tested, right? Or after?
No, it actually starts after your symptoms started.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's when the clock starts, is when your symptoms start.
Okay.
So and the 10 days is only if you're symptom free. So it's 10 days or 24 hours after your symptoms resolve, right? So if at the 10-day mark you still have a cough, you still have runny nose, you still have a headache, you're still feeling unwell, then that clock continues until you're 24 hours symptom free.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Do you have to be tested again?
You don't have to be tested again.
No. Okay.
Well, put on your mask, gang.
Definitely put on your masks, and thinking about one of the things that we did earlier on, and something for people to think about, is trying to minimize your trips out to the grocery store and the drugstore. So going once a week and sort of really planning out those trips, right? Going at times that are not peak times, going early in the morning or later at night when there aren't quite as many people in the store. Just being mindful of the space, and vigilant hand washing, masks. I really honestly can't remember the last time I went into a store and saw someone without a mask on. Like it really is not happening. And so I think that that's a really good sign as well.
Yeah.
So Jeff bought these for the family
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's nice.
because they're not selling poppies this year, right? So
Yeah.
he actually went online and he purchased these masks that say Legion and have poppies on them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
And the grocery store delivery services are amazingly good. Like they really are good. They're fast, they're inexpensive, and they deliver them right to your door. It's like, wow.
Yeah. No, they are. They're really good services. There are lots of good services that are out there from a delivery perspective. And, a lot of small businesses are definitely trying to get on board with that as well, with curbside pickup and those kinds of things. So it definitely doesn't have to be Amazon .com for getting the stuff to you
Yeah.
out. There are lots and lots of small businesses that are trying to make this work as well. So strongly encourage people to support those as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Very good.
Other
Very good.
questions?
All right. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see you on
Yeah.
the other
Thanks
side.
again, Anna. Thanks
Okay,
again.
bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.